This is the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast, where we spread awareness for men's mental health and spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify. New episodes drop weekly. This is the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast, and I'm your host, Steve. Tonight, I'm joined by Slade. He is the author of Unbreakable. He's also an Army Ranger that served in combat. He's a fitness expert nowadays. He started Always Forward Nutrition, DBA Wolf Fitness Gyms, and he's here tonight to share his powerful testimony of resilience, overcoming tough, insane obstacles, and also RJ is a man of faith. So we're going to talk about his journey and where faith lies in that, and also spread awareness for men's mental health. While you're watching, go ahead and hit the bell and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an episode. New episodes of the show drop every Wednesday and every Thursday. RJ, it's good to see you, man. Thanks for coming on tonight, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. The pleasure's all mine. I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, let's give Brady from Battle Forge Foundation a shout out. Brady, thanks for getting me and RJ hooked up, man. We appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Well, RJ, let's start from the beginning, man. Let's kind of start with childhood, and then we'll just work our way up from there. Where did you grow up, and what was childhood like for you, man?
So I grew up in a small little suburb just south of Salt Lake City called Mill Creek, and I'm the oldest of 7 kids. And I basically where I grew up, where the religion here is predominantly LDS. From childhood, I automatically started questioning a lot of things, because I knew that, God had a plan for all of us, and we're all here because of his creation of us and everything else. But a lot of the religious text I started to question, and didn't understand why things were certain ways. And one of the things that really made me walk away is we talked more about the founders of the church versus the man himself, Jesus, and God, and what represented it. So I learned very quick at a young age how anti-Christian Christians can be when you question faith and you question things like that. That I was outcast by people in my neighborhood. I couldn't hang out with friends anymore because I stopped going to church, those kind of things. And ultimately, that kind of led me down the path of finding friends that accepted me for who I was. And I mean, I dealt with being bullied. I dealt with a whole bunch of other issues. And by the time I got into high school, I necessarily wasn't a clicky person, or if, have it however you want to say it. But I mean, I didn't identify that I listen to this type of music, so I hang out with these people, or that. I was just always, I think, from being an oldest brother, the oldest of 7, I was helping my mom feed my brothers, and cooking meals for the family at 8 years old. And I learned selfless sacrifice at a young age. And my, thank goodness for my mom's teaching. She told me we're here to love everybody, and, learn to forgive. But it doesn't mean you got to open the door for people that don't see eye to eye to you, or maybe enemies to you or not. But I mean, we could pray that their hearts will change. But those kind of teachings my mom taught me throughout my life, I've just kind of accepted everybody. I don't necessarily say I don't care what color you are. I don't care anything, as long as we have something that aligns, and you are a good soul, at the end of the day, as long as you're somebody that really cares about others. So,
Let
but
me let
yeah.
me let me ask you, RJ. So you mentioned growing up in church and LDS, and they were kind of, I think what you said it correctly, they were focusing more on the founders than Jesus himself. When you kind of made the decision to stop attending church and you felt isolated and bullied for that, did you still believe in God? Did you still want to put God in your life? And I know that's a weird question for a kid, because I know when I was a kid, I struggled with some similar things, but I'm just curious, where was your faith in God when you felt kind of like, and I'm using my own words here, an outcast because of the way you were treated for not going to church anymore?
Yeah, absolutely. I knew in my heart that God was there, and I knew we were filled with the Holy Spirit. I just didn't feel, I didn't feel the spirit in the way we were talking. We more talked about the founders, and everything I learned in the Bible. We're not supposed to idolize false prophets or buildings or everything else. And unfortunately, with that religion, And I'm not knocking it. I'm grateful that they believe in God and other things. But at the end of the day, almost every home you would go into, there was the picture of the temple on the wall. And, and a lot of homes do have Jesus, but Jesus is the one we should be focusing on, not these temples that were resurrected,
Hmm.
and there's some other things that I questioned, how the man is in charge and everything else, when I've always helping my mom when growing up, I realized that it takes a team to raise a family, and so I didn't understand the patriarchy and the women can't hold the priesthood and all these other questions. So I never walked away from God. I knew God was always there. Even when in my struggles when I got into high school and stuff, I got mixed up into gangs and other stuff because you know, what happened is my dad owned pizza parlors, and me and some of my friends were out back one day and smoking cigarettes, doing dumb stuff, and my dad's uniforms were blue, and we had these guys pull up that were wearing red rags and pointed a shotgun at us. So me and my friends decided from that day on we were not going to be bullied by a rival gang, and created our own little gang. And and though I won't ever give it clout, the name of it, but I mean, at that time it felt like that's where I could get my protection, because unfortunately I don't fault my father at all, but my father was more stuck in the religious box, and the more outside that box I got, the more I felt like I was getting pushed away and I would never be enough, and et cetera, et cetera. So I mean, but long story short, I got in trouble. I ended up in youth corrections. And the one thing that kept me going, locked in that 6x6 cell as a kid, well, as a teenager, but I was still a kid, was reading the Bible every single day. And that's kind of always been my go to. Um, Now I have a lot stronger um, connection with God. I thank Him every day. At night I do a prayer and I tell Him how grateful I am for my wife to be in my life and the blessing she's been. And I just have learned to show so much more gratitude. But back then, I seemed to always go back to God when I was in the darkest holes.
Gotcha. What year was that when you guys kind of formed your gang?
It was in 1991.
Okay, so that was kind of when well, I guess NWA was coming on the scene and those type of groups, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, NWA was out. Well, yeah, Ice Cube, all those
Hmm.
guys, the Boys in the Hood movie
Yeah.
came out,
Okay.
all that stuff. I mean, it's funny that you bring that up because a lot of my friends nicknamed me Doughboy because they tried to
Oh.
say I looked a lot like Ice Cube, but I was like, okay, but I took it as they were just saying I was a chubby kid, and I
Mm.
didn't like being called Doughboy. But
Yeah.
a lot of me and my friends did idolize those movies and those kinds of things, and we thought, being a gangster had a lot of clout and other stuff. But as time went on, what really changed my life was when I got out of youth corrections. I got out, I graduated high school, but the gang member friends that didn't see me as growing out of it didn't like it, and they wanted me to keep doing stuff and other things. And luckily one of my best friends, um I mean, unfortunately we don't talk as much because life changes and you grow up and you have families, and but we're still friends to this day. But he stood the ground for me and told everybody, you're letting him out and he's going to go do what he's going to do, and we're not going to follow the laws of the gang and court him out or do these types of things. And one thing that's sad about that, there's one of the guys that I was on his football team the whole for all of my youth years, up into high school, and he ended up becoming a member of our gang. He went to prison for a long time, and he came out, and my friend ran into him, and this guy still wants to beat me up for walking away from the gang.
No
It's just
kidding.
it's just
Wow.
crazy that people's mentalities don't change after so much time.
Yeah. Well, so you graduate high school, and I'm trying to recollect from your book. You kind of work some jobs, and then is that how you kind of started off down the path to join the army?
Yeah, so I was selling drugs still, but I was delivering pizza for my dad at his pizza parlor. Also at nighttime doing working at a glass shop that he managed during the day. Because my dad owned his own, he had his own general contracting license. He just recently retired, but that ultimately he wanted to do a father and son business, and I wasn't into it, but gratefully, as I was making these poor choices and selling the weed and other things. One of my friends that I'm no longer close with, but we lived right across the street with each other, played with each other since we were 8 years old, and his mom happened to work for the county sheriff's department, and she seen me over at my parents because at this time I had moved out, had my own apartment, kind of what you did in the 90s and 80s. Once you turned 18, you moved out of your parents'
Mhm.
house. Is just what it was. But long story short, she let me know that the narcotics unit was watching me, and within 2 weeks, I was enlisted in the military and on an airplane. So
Hey, can you share that story, that's in the book real quick where you guys were, the undercover was kinda following you and, it coulda ended really bad. Do you mind sharing that story with our viewers?
yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we'll kind of go backwards a little bit, but what ultimately landed me in youth corrections is one night, me and my buddies were out driving around. We were going through a neighborhood that was where the rival gangs were at. We actually got shot at driving past one of the rival gangs' house when we were in that neighborhood, and I sped out of there. And as we headed back to another friend's house, we noticed this lowrider truck following us. We seen the red bandanas hanging from the window, and ultimately, occurred is one of my friends pulled out a pistol. He shot from the back. He handed me the gun. I was driving. I fired a couple of shots, though in my heart, I couldn't point it at somebody else. I didn't, I wasn't, they hadn't become a threat yet. So just to get clout, I pointed at the sky and fired the gun. But long story short, as soon as I punched it and got around the corner, I noticed there was a roadblock of police officers, lights everywhere. And the one story that my dad had shared with me that night that occurred was him and my grandfather were walking out of my dad's pizza parlor, and my grandpa grabbed my dad's shoulder and said, we got to pray right now, something bad's going to happen. And I truly feel that prayer that my grandfather felt so empowered to bless all of his grandchildrens and to watch over them and protect them. Ultimately, what we found out when I was going to court was that those undercover police officers, those gang task force cops, never took their guns out of their lockbox that night, so they were unable to return fire. Otherwise, that could have ultimately ended up way worse. Where
Mhm.
I mean, here we are, dumb kids that don't know how to even look down the sights of the gun very well, and making stupid choices as teenagers do. But I mean, I really feel that through that prayer and the guardian angel watched over all of us. And for me, it getting arrested changed my course. It changed my path. It made me realize, this all I do is stress out. My friends, all most of my friends that call themselves friends are just there to use me. I mean, I was in a where I hung out with all these guys and met them all. They were lived in a lower income area anyways, and they thought I was some rich white kid, but all I did was work really a lot and bought my own car by the time I was 15. And but they'd always say, "Oh, you got money, you're a rich white boy." But I was always the one that gave rides. I was the one that did everything, so I had to walk away from it all. So, I mean, yeah,
Were your parents excited when you decided to join the army?
yeah. I mean, it felt like they were excited. At least my mom was excited, and my grandmother was worried. Everybody they were worried, but they were excited because
Yeah.
the fear of what ultimately happens when you join the military is you can possibly go to war. And I have an uncle and my dad's second cousin that both had been to Vietnam. And and I had another uncle that was in the Air Force. But ultimately, the one that was the Green Beret and the other one was a Ranger, they both had the cooler stories. And so I ultimately wanted to be a grunt, like they were. But the quickest way I could get out is I ended up going in first as a armor crewman, as a 19 kilo. And even after basic training, I got, my OSUT, because tankers go to one station unit training. But this was at Fort Knox, Kentucky in 1996. And when I graduated, I got the Patton Award for leadership. I was, the platoon guy there. It was something I really liked. I liked the structure. I liked the stuff. Nobody likes getting broken down, but I mean, ultimately, it taught me how much more I could do and what type of leader that I could be. And those types of things. But that ultimately fast tracked me. And luckily, I had a company commander that was a former enlisted guy that went green to gold, that was a Ranger. And, I had a special forces tab, a Ranger. He was a triple tabber. But, anyways, I told him what I really wanted to do. And I said, I can't decide between SF or Ranger. And he's like, you go to Ranger school. He's like, then if you decide, you can double tab and do special forces and Ranger and, get your airborne tab and all that stuff. And so he kind of mentored me and pushed me that direction, because I made my sergeant in 3 years. I made my E5. So, I mean, from there, I ultimately went to Ranger school. I went back then, it was called RIP. I guess now it's
Mm-hmm.
called RASP.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, I went through there. I watched. I believe we had like a class of like 70-ish guys, but by the time I graduated, there was only 36 of us left. So there was, it's a high fell out rate, because
Mm-hmm.
it came down to heart and other stuff. And I thought back then I was really trying to do stuff to show my dad that I'm still a good person, regardless of not following the religious norms that I grew up in and other stuff. And and now looking backwards, I was just really proving to myself everything I could do. And ultimately, I ended up at Fort Lewis McChord. But between there, I jumped into northern Afghanistan in 2001 in November, 2 months after
Wow.
September 11th happened. I was in Afghanistan and northern Afghanistan, moving south for a year, came home for 6 months. Then I was back over in Iraq in the early times from 2003 till November 2005. I was there for 545 days. But I mean, one of the hardest parts was that's when I got blown out of the Humvee and by a roadside bomb. And that was another time, I always wore a cross. I actually had a priest in the Catholic Church bless my cross before I left. And I always wore my cross and I always had it with me. And that's another time I felt like guardian angels were there, because the whole reason I'm even here today is because they buried the IED too deep. So the ground took most of that blast wave. Otherwise, my guts would have been turned to mush. But I mean, back then I've always been a selfless sacrificer. I tried to stand up to bullies for my friends in high school. I would do those types of things. And when we were coming back from a raid that we were doing in the middle of the night, we always used active army or National Guard troops, whoever was at the safe house or the fire base we were staying at. They always provided QRF and outer cordon and those kinds of things. So we would just hitch a ride with whoever on the way back after we hit our targets and came back. And you know, like I say in my book, they were younger than me. I was 26, 27 at the time, and 18, 19-year-old guys. And the only part of the up armor on this Humvee, it was a pickup style with a 240 mount in the back in the pickup bed that you leaned against a ratchet strap, to hold you up.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted them to be in a place that was more safe, so I opted to take the machine gun. But ultimately, I mean, I got injured. I got put on the radios for 30 days, and then I was back out, back out doing my stuff for another 6 months. But the hardest part that happened during that same time is not only was I dealing with healing there, but I had a lot of drama going on back home and a lot of other problems. I found out I got requested to come home by the victims' right advocates because I found out my children were being abused at my ex-wife's house by her boyfriend. But yet I had to learn to turn all that off and focus on the mission every day. And the commanding general at the time denied me going home because our mission was more important. That's when all the elections were happening in Iraq and other stuff like that we had to be there to pull security and gather intel and do those types of things. So I don't know if it's just an ability in me, but I had to shut stuff down. And I had to look forward to at least being able to try to talk to my kids when I got the chance to call on the phones once a week, because we were at a fire base away from the main air base. And so we had a satellite phone, but we were only allowed to use it for 20 minutes each once a week. So that's ultimately what I would do. And it got more stressful because the wife I was married to, she was hard to get a hold of. And even though she was watching my kids a lot more, but yeah, that it from that whole experience, I was just grateful. The whole time I was there, I probably read the Bible 5 times.
I
So
believe it. Yeah, I
I re-
believe it.
I really believe that my my choice to connect with God no matter what situation I was in and everything else is really the reason I've been protected or whatever you want to call it, why I had these guardian angels watching over me. But I mean, one of the coolest things that I can say I liked in Iraq is I actually stood next to King David's tomb in Kirkuk.
Wow. No kidding.
Yeah, it was pretty
Yeah.
awesome. I mean, it's up on a hill. It's the only hill in Kirkuk, Iraq, and it was a great fire position to watch for people putting IEDs in the ground. But I couldn't believe I was standing next to somebody that's in the Bible,
Man,
King
that's
David.
crazy. Yeah. Wow.
So, I mean, and I take that. And plus, what I try to reflect on more is not the targets we had to take out or the other things. It was all the humanitarian projects. And really, that's when I discovered how crooked the media is and how they like to spew hatred and other things, because I was followed around by the Idaho Statesman and a few other newspapers, and they have a one of the articles that came out, they have a picture of me standing in an Iraqi village with a big smile on my face, and all it says is, despite getting hit with 7 IEDs this week, the second of the 75th Ranger Regiment's still in good spirits,
Hmm.
you know? And I'm like, that we were there doing humanitarian stuff. We were playing soccer with the kids. We
Yeah.
were handing out books and supplies. And you guys, we, I mean, it was from a few days prior, we were driving back from doing a mounted patrol and stuff. And a daisy chain of IEDs blew up in between our convoy, but we were traveling too fast. They triggered it too late, so they were blowing up in between the Humvees. Nobody got hurt. We just kept going, but it's the shock and awe that they kept going for. And it was kind of after that I said, you guys got to quit following me around.
Yeah.
Like I'm done with this.
Yeah.
You know, if that's all you want to talk about, why else would I be smiling in an Iraqi village right now? You know,
Right. Yeah.
not because I
Yeah.
just took down some terrorists, but
Right.
no, it's not in our blood to do it. I mean, honestly, even my first target that I had to engage, I mean, I had to split second decision. I said, it's me or I got to take them out, or they're going to hurt a lot more soldiers that when they blow up this IED. And still to this day, I mean, I don't regret doing what I did. I took out the targets I needed to take out. I did my job. I did my mission. I handled my business. But at the end of the day, I've tried not to let that beat me up inside, because I know God is great, and I know He knows I didn't do that out of hate or
Mhm.
anger or just to straight up kill somebody. It was never about that. I mean, it was about the people I love here in America and everything that I believe in our Constitution and our faith in God. And I knew I wanted my children to grow up in a lot better world. So that's
Yeah,
why I did what I did.
I was gonna say, I mean, having that strong, foundation in faith, would obviously, I would think would play a big role in that to keep you kinda grounded, and see it's for the greater cause and you're doing, you're doing what you need to do because 'cause you're a warrior and it's not you're just, being reckless or doing something that's unbiblical. So, yeah, that's cool that you tied the faith into that. I'm glad you put that out there.
Yeah. I mean, I've always felt like I've been a messenger of God, whether it's, sacrificing myself, like I said, getting in front of bullies to take the hit for friends or what have you. But in the end, I just always know He's been there for me in my darkest times. And so, I mean, yeah, that's the only way I knew I could separate and connect and stay sane, was just talking
Mhm.
to God.
So with the situation back in the States with your kids and going through all that, did that kind of chart the course for you to leave the military so you could be, with them and get them out of that environment because they're obviously in a situation that's not safe and is unhealthy for them?
Yeah, and ultimately, when I came home, they found out I had herniated 3 discs in my back and some other stuff. So I was no longer combat deployable. I was cadre at Benning for a little bit, but I was on a basically what everybody calls in the army a dead man profile. I couldn't do the PT run anymore. I couldn't do the sit ups. And now they have a totally new PT test. But I was a cadre for a little bit. I recruited in Eastern Idaho for a couple years, and ultimately I ended up reclassing to the Army Chemical Corps, specializing in chem bio nuke and going to a reserve unit. And I was in that reserve unit for the rest of the time so I could be home with my kids, and I was working as a hazmat response. I was a operations director for a hazmat response and environmental cleanup company when I first got out. And but I needed to find something that I could be with my kids all the time. And ultimately, I got put on active reservist orders and was working there full time. And then I started having issues with my back more and more. I was going up to the VA hospital every 6 months, getting epidural steroid injections in my spine and everything else after I came back. So over 7 years, I got a injection in my spine every 6 months, which
Man.
on the last time I went there, the doctor's like, "You're really only supposed to get 4 or 5 of these in your lifetime, and you've had one every year for 7 years." And they were starting to see bone spurs and other stuff. And so there was other reasons I decided to back out too, but I was like, "Okay, I've been in for almost 18 years now." I took a reduction in rank to go to this reserve unit, promising I would get my rank back. It was never They kept making excuses why I couldn't get it. Well, we don't have enough people to stand up another platoon to make you an E7 again and give you a platoon sergeant. All these things. So ultimately, I was still on uh, active orders, and I asked to go to the medical review board, and then immediately they allowed me to do that, and I took a job with that environmental company, which ended up me and my kids ended up having to move to the Dalles, Oregon, which is about 70 miles east of Portland. So right on the Columbia River, but I got sent there to help work with a project manager when I got hired as the operation manager because they were struggling. They were going to lose the contract with the Department of Energy, and 2 days before I was supposed to start, I found out this project manager quit and they wanted me to go up there and take care of it. I mean, the company was really good to me. They put me in a big, huge studio hotel room so I could have my kids there. It was a bigger luxury suite there given for a Super 8 motel. But in the end, I ultimately had to hire a nanny and do that. But 2 months into this project, one morning I was getting up and after I'd taken over, I guess I'll start when I took over. Really, I found out that the reason they were behind and struggling is because the previous guy was a micromanager. He didn't give them goals. He didn't set up, anything of value to make them want to change their work or work harder. And it was you worked 6 10-hour shifts. So you worked
Mm.
Monday through Saturdays, 10 hours a day. We were in hot, level C's with a respirator going into these rooms that had mercury levels that were higher than our meter, our detection device would read. It was over
Wow.
50,000 parts per million. But ultimately what this place was is they sent energy up from the Big Eddy Dam to this power conversion station, and it converted it to DC to send it down to California because I guess energy stays more efficient at a DC current. But they had all these inverter valves that were filled with liquid mercury, and they'd take them down every so many thousand kilowatt hours. And it started back in the 70s. So they didn't realize mercury was volatile. So they had mercury contamination throughout this whole power conversion station.
Man.
And it was our job to go in and isolate each room. We removed all the asbestos and everything else. But once I was able to sit down with everybody, get the goals, outline where we were at, assign somebody to be in charge of monitoring all the stuff, everything else, I built a good rapport with them. I even suited up and I went inside, even though I got in trouble by my division director. He's like, "Well, you need to be there so these guys can find you." And I go, "They know where to find me. I'm working with my team and I'm showing my team how a good boss is. I don't tell them to pull the rock up the hill. I get on the front of the rope with them and pull it."
Hmm.
So I built a really good rapport. But long story short, to get back to how I ended up in the wheelchair, it was simply, I got out of the shower one morning and I went to pull up my underwear and I felt a pop and I lost the filling in both my legs. And thank God my son was there, and also that I was able to get my underwear up before I called him into the bathroom. But it took him an hour just to move me,
Yeah.
20 feet from the bathroom to the couch. And then he ran and got my crew who came and carried me out to the van and took me to the hospital. I got put on bed rest for 4 days, and they tried to prescribe me painkillers. And that little guy, the only time I would get up because it was so painful to go to the bathroom as if I had to sit down to go to the bathroom, but he was taking pee bottles and dumping them for me so I didn't have to get
Wow.
out of bed. And I'm very grateful. My daughter had gone back home to spend some time with my ex-wife because at that time I, me and I she thought she was still a good person, but ultimately things came out as our divorce was finalizing that, my kids realized they were kind of brainwashed by her. But I mean, anyways, I don't fault them. Children's minds are feeble and everything else. And I know she has her regrets, but I tell her don't have them. But my son was there and I felt so guilty. Every morning my guys went and rented me a wheelchair. They built me a wheelchair ramp to my office at the site. They would help me load up in the van. And I'd been in the wheelchair for 2 months before my boss even came out. And he's like, what the hell, man?
Wow, no
You,
kidding.
yeah. He's like, if you would have told me you're in a wheelchair, we would have got somebody up here to replace you. And I go, I could still do my job and lead the team from a wheelchair.
Mhm.
So anyways, after a few months, because of where I was at, I was cooking, I was doing P90X in the room, trying to stay in shape, do what I could. All that went away. Pretty soon it was ordering pizza. It was having my crew go pick up Burger King or Taco Bell or all these things. And 6 months of sitting in a wheelchair, I went from 205 pounds all the way up to 298 pounds. And so I didn't realize how fat I had gotten or anything else. And at that time, I didn't understand food and everything else. So once I was able to start walking with the cane again, I was trying to date and find, somebody else. Cause I mean, ultimately, I wanted a partner to spend the rest
Mhm.
of my life with. But unfortunately, my first two choices they taught me lessons. We'll just
Mhm.
say that. They
It's a good
taught
way
me
to put
what,
it. Yeah,
yeah, they
good way.
taught me what I didn't want. And,
Yeah.
and truly, even when I met my wife who I'm married to now, I mean, I was drinking alcohol, I was doing other stuff to mask my mental problems I was going through, the struggles, the feeling of worthlessness, those types of things. And that led me down a path, luckily I found her and she was my rock because there was one time later on that I was having so much anxiety and other problems. The VA prescribed me Xanax, and I had a home brew kit. I had any given time I had 25 gallons of beer sitting in the closet because I brewed my own beer. And I made a mistake. I didn't read the Xanax stuff. I took Xanax and I drank a vodka Collins, and before I know it, I was waking up at my brother's house. And come to find out, I had ended up in handcuffs. I had done all these things. I was
No
screaming.
kidding.
Yeah, I
Wow.
was screaming at my wife. She had to call the cops on me. Her father came and removed all the guns from my house. And that was kind of the lowest point I ever got. I never wanted to become that type of person. And I thought the alcohol was really, helping me deal with all the problems going on in my brain because there was still a lot of, man, I'm this, I'm that. I was so negative towards myself and I felt worthless. And I felt bad that, me and my wife still joke. I'm like, I swear I didn't catfish you. The pictures I had was when I was in shape.
Mhm.
But she's accepted me, and both of us came out of really bad relationships that both of us were mentally abused and other things. We both, I mean, both of us got physical abuse. We both got mental abuse. We were both told we're horrible humans, and all this is happening to us is because of us and who we are. And in the end, it was just those people making really bad choices and choosing to come off on us because of how they felt inside. But I really found my rock in her, and she supported me, and I found out she actually held on to me when the cops wanted to tase me. I mean,
Wow.
all these things. So once I found all that out, I decided, you know what? I'm done with alcohol altogether. I sold the beer making kit. I gave that up and I gave up the hard liquor and I started going to Alcohol Anonymous. But I realized in AA, you always say, "Hi, I'm RJ. I'm an alcoholic," and I'm like, really. If you're breaking away from it, you're no longer an alcoholic. You're only an alcoholic if you continue down the path of doing the alcohol. So really, you're just reaffirming that dependency on alcohol by stating it. And I didn't like it, but I still gave up the hard liquor. I became kind of a micro beer snob for a little while, but ultimately I eventually just cut it all out. And what really led to that was as I was going through trying to recover and heal, I met a holistic chiropractor that my wife actually went to high school with. He found out that I had six muscles in my lower back and glutes and that support my lower back that had never turned back on. So I learned how amazing our bodies are that, your brain will turn off certain things to protect you in trauma or
Mhm.
accidents or other things. But we're so complex and unique, our brain forgets to tell those parts to turn back on. And had the military done a test to see if my muscles were actually working and firing, then I wouldn't have kept doing the epidurals. But they weren't about that. It was about getting me back out to do my job, and the
Mhm.
steroids worked for 6 months. And so once I went to this chiropractor and found out this, he did all this muscle reactivation on me, and that's where I went to my doctor and I said, okay, I want to know what I need to do. I'm overweight. I'm trying to do this or that. And he goes, well, go see a personal trainer. So me and my wife started seeing a personal trainer for 3 years, and ultimately got to a point where I was like, dude, I'm flatlined. I'm at 20% body fat. Why am I not going anywhere? I'm following this macro diet. I'm doing all these things. And because of the type of person I am, I wanted to learn more. So I went and seen a holistic doctor, and he taught me about the microbiome and about your body and about how proper nutrition and doing these things. And he even said, by the time you guys finish this program, you guys won't even have sugar in your house, which my wife laughed at because she really loves sweets. But I mean, here we are 7 years later, and through all that, I ultimately learned. I went and got certified as a personal trainer. I got certified as a nutritionist. Now I'm a national certified health and wellness coach, and I walked away from a director position with the state of Utah, and I was the director over the state fleet to go teach holistic nutrition. And it was crazy because it was right after COVID, and I found out how quick it was that health and wellness and mental health and those types of things, it's hard to get out there on a lot of these media platforms, so social media, because whether they have algorithms or not. But me trying to teach people how to take care of themselves through nutrition, how your stomach is really the command center, and all these things, I wasn't getting the views, I wasn't getting clientele. I started steeping down into depression again, and that led me into seeking out a therapist. And I found an amazing therapist, and not your typical one that sits and writes notes and wants to prescribe you a bunch of meds and tell you you're crazy, basically, and this will help. But she just really listened, and I did a whole bunch of different therapy treatments. And one of the most powerful things that happened is I decided to do ketamine, because through all this, they found out from the accident I had frontal lobe damage. So between my front of my brain and the back parts of my brain, I wasn't communicating. So anytime I would go into fight or flight, she described it as like I was letting the reins off the horse. And me
Hmm.
being the fighter I am, I would dig into fights. I would have temper tantrums. I would get angry over stupid stuff. And so what ultimately we did to fix some of that is we did I can never remember what it is, but you have vibrating things in your hand, and
Mhm.
I think it's like ERDM or EDRM.
EMDR, I think is the
Yeah, that's
name.
what it is. I always
Yeah.
get the acronym mixed up. So I did some of that. We dug into some child trauma, but ultimately I they do ketamine therapy there too. And so they offered to do ketamine therapy treatments. The owner of this counseling centers, she actually has a nonprofit called Helping Heroes Heal, where they provide holistic and like the TMS machine that helps rewire your brain and all that for veterans and first
Mhm.
responders. And so she offered to do it, and if I could pay it, they would do a payment arrangement. But even they discounted even my therapy just so I could be able to come, because they knew I was trying to work on my own and build my own stuff, and I was mostly living off my army pension and those types of things. But the most amazing thing happened about my fourth session in, because I went in to do this ketamine session, and my wife always came and she sat with me and held my hand, even though it really takes you into, I feel like you were flying through outer space. I mean, it is a psychedelic, but
Mhm.
um I was down. I was like, "Wow, man, I'm trying to teach all these people, I pray to God every day to give me light." And I'm like, why are you not answering me, God? I was kind of being a blasphemer. And the most powerful thing happened in one of the sessions where I all of a sudden I just got surrounded. Because I was upset. I was trying to figure out what if I'm doing the right path, and I got surrounded by light, and it was God. And God said to me, He said, "You're on the right path. You're doing everything you're supposed to be doing. Keep going." And it was the most amazing light and warmth that I had ever felt in my life. And I just remember sitting there in this state going, "Holy cow." And my wife had no idea what was going on while this was happening. But, as soon as I came out, I told her, and I was like, "I can see why people struggle coming back from the light." It just felt so warm, and I could just feel this soft voice talking to me, and it wasn't my voice, and I know it wasn't the psychedelics. I know it was either an angel or God came to me and was like, "You're on the right path. Keep going." And then fast forward a couple weeks later, I was on the down thing, and I was being a blasphemer again, and I was like, God, I thought you said you gave me everything I need. I got this. I'm like, why? Why is this still happening? And it seemed like almost every time before I went to therapy session, I was having a nervous breakdown. I had to do the ketamine and other stuff, and I was really struggling because I mean, the other side of it was I really felt my wife needed to do these kind of treatments, but she was sacrificing so I could pay to go to all these things because of all the trauma she went through in her previous relationship. So I was feeling a little selfish too. But the same thing happened. I'm going, I get the ketamine administered, I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden my wife said she could see me just suck back in the chair and lean back and like that, but I got sucked into this complete darkness. And all I thought I was screaming out loud, but apparently I was saying it in my head, but I was screaming, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I want to live. I want to live. I said, and then all of a sudden I got surrounded by light again. And that voice came back and said, I've given you everything you need. It's sitting right next to you. And as soon
Wow.
as I came out, I looked at my wife and I go, you're my gift from God. You're my rock. You're everything. I mean, I can't believe I appreciate her and I love her, but
Hmm.
I've always looked at her as a blessing, but I never looked at it from that angle. And from that day on, I was like, man, you know what? You are a teammate. You are my best friend. I am grateful. I'm glad that you've stood by my side and held on to me even when I've had my ups and downs, when I was dealing with the alcohol problems, the chaos and everything else. And you truly are a gift from God. And us meeting wasn't by coincidence. I mean, because I tried all the dating apps, all the women that I was meeting, they just want, it was like, to put it in PG perspective, they basically wanted me to take them on a date and dust it off.
Mm,
And
yeah.
that's not all I was about, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted a room, I wanted a companion, I wanted a best
Right.
friend. I wanted somebody that loved me as much as I loved them, which I never got in my previous relationships. I mean, I felt like I was the one that was trying very hard and they were promiscuous, doing other things in the background. But this woman is stuck by my side. I mean, to wrap herself around me, even though I was the one she had to call the cops on, but she still protected me at the door when they showed up to our house and to allow me back in. And to this day, I mean, I know I've been forgiven by God, but I still struggle letting it go and other things because I know my kids witnessed some of this stuff, and it was hard. But I mean, even my daughter, my stepdaughter, the oldest, asked me to wear my dress blues after all this stuff happened to give her away when she got married. And I was so grateful that my stepdaughter, wanted me to walk her down the aisle and be the one to give her away, even after the stuff I caused. Because her and her boyfriend were one of the ones I guess I confronted. I
Mm.
mean, to go backwards a little bit, my wife told me I was crawling around in our scrub oak in front of the house, and when her and her boyfriend showed up, who she's married to now, I popped up and gave him a military command. I popped up out of the bush and said, "Halt, advance to be recognized." Or lethal force is authorized, and they just screamed and ran and got in their car, and that's when my wife knew she had to call the cops. But she's ultimately forgiven me, and I love my daughter because she's seen all the trauma I went through. She understands it. She knows we're not perfect. She knows why I was a little bit harder on her, everything else. But my oldest son, I mean, he's in the army right now. He just got back from Syria. Um, but he kind of followed in my footsteps, even though he'll say, I didn't go Ranger, Dad. And I say, good. I was jumping out of airplanes when you were 2 years old. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, luckily, I get to see him tomorrow because he just barely got back from demobbing and everything. He was
Mm.
in Texas, but and I get to catch up a little bit with him. But I mean, I'm grateful for everything that God's given me. I'm grateful for my children. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have the knowledge and the learning that I've done. I've worked so hard to teach people that about your gut microbiota and what we eat and everything. And we got to be conscious of the food. And, the only time I'll go to a doctor is to get stitched up or have a bone fixed for emergency care. That's it. But I will never go to a doctor again for any other elements in my body because I know holistically we can heal ourselves. And honestly, since I started this, I haven't been sick in over 7 years since I
Wow.
changed my lifestyle and went to a more holistic diet. Well, I'm 100% holistic. Even a lot of people tell me all the time, you eat very healthy, and So through all this, I luckily got the opportunity to be invited to fly out to Atlantic City, New Jersey, and meet Tony Saxby, who gave me the opportunity to buy into his Wolf Fitness franchise. And what really stood out about that with him is their whole motto of community, honor, integrity, and commitment, and how he has kept that since he was a Boy Scout. And he was a former SWAT officer in New Jersey and everything else. But I mean, the guy aligns with me so much and the same, and his values and how they want to keep the small mom and pop gym fill, because all these
Hmm.
big box office gyms are just about numbers and they don't care who comes in the door, and they want something. And and this also gave me the opportunity because having your own fitness place, it takes a lot of capital to get going and started and buy all the equipment, et cetera, and start. And I unfortunately 3 years ago I had my identity stolen, so I
Wow.
it really messed me up from being able to get an SBA loan. I had to pay $80,000 to an attorney to try to fix my stuff, but it's still
Dang.
ultimately I had to file bankruptcy to get. I had like $70,000 in loans taken out of my name. um, but it sucked because I couldn't prove who did it. The cameras at my house weren't working, but we had a disaster happen. Our basement flooded. We brought a contractor. The insurance sent a contractor to our house. I had a room in my basement at that house that I had my reloading and my safes and all my stuff in there. I had a 50 cal box filled that I called my I Love Me box that had all my military awards, all my stuff in there. And I told them to stay out of that room. And I came home one day, my basement door was ajar, and all the stuff in that room had been moved into the center. Well, I didn't realize that any of that stuff had been stolen until after I had ultimately had to kick that guy out for because he said we weren't there, nobody came there, we shut the door, we didn't go in that room. And I'm like, well, how's all the stuff removed and the carpet gone then? I told you guys that there's sensitive items in there. I mean, from my reloading stuff to everything else. And that box disappeared, whether him or an employee stole it. There was fake bank accounts opened up in my name, their loans taken out my names, and then once the loans funded, those accounts closed. And it was sad because as much money as you invest, I ultimately had to walk away and just say, "All right, I'm going to file bankruptcy." Well, I shared all this stuff with Tony and them, and I said, "Look, I got enough money to buy the franchise, but I don't have they're not going to let me get an SBA right now until I fix my credit builds up higher because you have to have a 700 plus score."
Hmm.
So ultimately, after me and Tina went out there, my wife, anyways, uh, we went out there and we met them. We seen how much we liked each other and aligned with one another, etc. And even though they came to me and said, "Look, you're not going to be able to get an SBA, but we're going to do some stuff." And like 2 weeks later, they called me and said, "Hey, we got some people that want to help back you guys. We want to see you guys get this gym. So if you guys give us the thumbs up, we'll go ahead and sell you a franchise."
Wow.
And so that's where we're at right now. The gym, we haven't ultimately got it open because unfortunately, the people that promised they would back me have kind of been up and down for the past 4 months now on whether they're going to do it or not. So right now I just keep teaching holistic health and wellness and try to keep pushing forward. And I just pray, I had a good meeting with Tony's CEO Kel yesterday, and he's going to retouch base because one of their biggest things is they don't want the karma from
Mm.
it. Tony's like, I want you to have this, and these guys made the promise, and we did all this so that this could, so you
Hmm.
could get this gym and open it. Which I'm really excited because all of our gyms out here are overcrowded. They have 15,000 members. They don't care about people. They don't believe in all these things, and ultimately, that's what I love doing. I love teaching nutrition. I love teaching people how to exercise and functional fitness and all those things. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy how the Lord just keeps setting different things in my path, and teaching me patience over and over again.
That's a hard lesson to learn. At least I know it is for me. Are you like currently, are you doing the nutrition and the fitness stuff? Are you doing it online or are you doing it in person with clients like face to face?
So I do a little bit of online and in person.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the gym I've been doing my personal training out of, they were letting me do it there for free. And then they got a new manager at the beginning of the year that told me I have to pay them $750 a month to train people at their gym. So right now I'm training 2 people, but we work out together so I don't have to pay the fee. But
Yeah,
I have a lot more that I want, but I do teach people nutrition. Right now there's a grocery store. You guys don't have them out there, but it's called Natural Grocers. So I go in there and I teach holistic nutrition there for
cool.
them as well. But it's that's also tested me as well because there were certain things that I asked if I was going to come there and work there part time and teach these kind of things, and they've kind of reneged on their promises. I asked for some reasonable accommodations so I could leave and go to therapy during the day. I've been there 6 months and they've failed to allow me to leave to go to therapy. So I just clock out at the time I'm supposed to go and leave anyways. I'm like, you guys have had the letters from my therapist, everything else. But I mean, yeah, if it wasn't for my wife and therapist, I would have never wrote the book. And
Yeah,
my therapist calls me her fit Forrest Gump. I mean, it's funny, but she's like, I can't call you just Forrest Gump, but she's like, you've been through so many things in your life and yet you still try to rise and shine and smile and get through it. And she's like, you're therapy for me when we have our sessions. And so I kind of crack up and I share with everybody that she calls me her fit Forrest Gump. But I mean,
it's funny.
it's true. I've been one of those humans that have tried everything. And when I get knocked down, one thing my mom says I do the best is I jump 10 times higher than I did when I fall down because I realize my mistakes. I'm not one of those people you can't say, "Hey, you're messing up, you're doing this," and I hate you for it.
Hmm.
I go, "Okay, let me figure this out and fix it," which, like I've learned a lot. Like in my book, like my first squad leader, he would spit on the floors of the Humvees and make us clean it up when we come out of the field. And I'm like, what kind of leader does this to their
Hmm.
guys? Which taught me how to be a better leader, how to lead from the front. And, of course, I would remind my guys I'm in charge, but I'm not going to lead with an iron fist. I trust you guys. We're a team. This is what we're going to do. And, successfully, after 898 days in combat, me and all my guys came home. I didn't have to write that letter to anybody's parents because we were cohesive. We stuck together. We watched each other's backs. We didn't, you know, take shortcuts. We didn't make the mistakes. So, and that's all I try to teach with people, even with nutrition. It's a lifestyle change. And
Hmm.
really, if people would realize a lot of the hormone problems, the depression and everything else actually comes from your gut.
I was gonna interject this because you said you're the fit Forrest Gump. I train a lady that works for Lieutenant Dan, the real Lieutenant Dan. So it's kind of funny. She works for the Garrison East Foundation. But man, I wanna unpack the alcohol thing real quick. I want to circle back a little bit because that's really where I started my journey with alcohol abuse, and I just wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit. I know you're in therapy and you did the ketamine, and then you've got a great support system with your wife and partner and teammate. Was it hard for you when you stopped drinking? Did you miss it? Did you have any withdrawals with it, or was it hard to be in certain environments? I'm just curious on your take on what it was like for you with alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I couldn't be around a lot of people drinking, or I really it took me to really change a lot of habits and stop doing certain things and realizing that I have the strength in myself to make these changes and corrections, but I've got to change the behavior. Just like going back to when I was a teenager and making poor choices with the gang and everything else, I could have totally gone down the path even further and ended up dead or in prison, but I realized this wasn't a path that was going to get me anywhere in life that I wanted to be. And same with the alcohol. I realized I was using alcohol more as an excuse. And even when I stopped the hard liquor and after a while after, I got my wife's approval again, I would buy micro beers, but she allowed me to have, a 12 ounce, once a day, but that was about it. Because I mean, I did really scare her, but I still felt like I needed to have a beer when I was watching football or this or that. And pretty soon it just became a reason. Oh, it's a hot day. I'm going to go have a beer or this or that. And I would never get to the point where I felt tipsy or drunk ever again because I could only have 12 ounces, or sometimes she'd let me get a 24-ounce big bottle. But it just got to a point that I started realizing this is a habit. This is masking problems. This is causing me more problems. And I know it caused a lot of problems with me and my kids because, at this point, when me and my wife met each other and got married, I already had two teenagers. She had a teenager, one that was about to be a teenager, and so we brought this blended family together. We have six children and three grandkids now, but I mean, we brought this family together, but it was still dysfunctional. And, I still wasn't there for my kids the way I should have been there for my kids. And ultimately, the fear of losing them, losing the one person I found in my life that actually lifts me up and supports me and is my rock, was the final thing for me to say, you know what, it's time to walk away. And really what did it is going and meeting this holistic doctor. And once I went on I did the fasting that he told me to do and started the path. I really stopped craving alcohol after that. Because it wasn't part of what my goals were. It wasn't in his diet that I was supposed to be following. And honestly, it cost us $12,000 to do a 12-week program with this guy.
Damn. Wow.
The money we invested too, but I mean, yeah, in the end, it became my my love for my family and wanting that relationship with my wife and kids.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, if do you have a favorite scripture or a motto or a creed that's kind of gotten you through the most challenging parts of your life, RJ?
Uh, I don't know. I just always I always say to myself that we got to look at ourselves as God is our blacksmith, and that when we're the steel, but when steel comes into the blacksmith, it hasn't been shapen, it hasn't been forged, it hasn't been tempered, it hasn't been made into anything. And that I just need to remember that I'm that steel that God created, and sometimes I'm going to get put back in the fire so I can be honed and shaped and done these other ways. So I just need to remember that all these trials and tribulations are the things that God has done to show me what type of person I am, what type of soul I have. And even right now, I feel like I'm at a low place right now because things aren't working out as fast or the way I thought they would be. But then I got to look up and say, you know, God, this is part of your plan. You are putting people in my path that need to be in my path, or taking people out that don't need to be in my path. And I just need to smile and accept the lessons and the blessings in life.
That's yeah, and I agree with that. And it can be challenging, but that is a good outlook to have and a good mindset. Where can our listeners learn more about you? Like how can they connect with you?
Well, I'm
And where
on
can they buy
Instagram.
your book?
Yeah.
So, we'll hold this up.
My book's on Amazon, so you can buy it on Amazon. You can search it. There's digital, hardback, and softback copies you can purchase. Um, I haven't recorded a audio book yet, but it's on Amazon right now. You just got to search the Unbreakable: The Journey to Becoming Enough by Robert J. Slade, and that's the reason I go by RJ is because my dad's Robert. So
Mm.
it's been a nickname since I was a kid, and my mom said it was because so she would know, so we would know who she was mad at. But everybody knows when your mom's mad, she's using your full name, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny.
But I mean, I love my mother. I'm grateful that my mom and dad are still here, and those things. But yeah, that's where they can find my book. I'm on Instagram at allisforwardfit.nutrition. Um, I'm on Facebook. They can look me up, RJ Slade. But yeah, I'm here to help support. I go and support Brady at the Battle Forge Foundation. I try to help support Whitney with her nonprofit, Helping Heroes Heal. However, it seems like Brady's foundation's more driven at trying to get people to come in and support. So there hasn't been a lot that I've dealt with her in the past year or so, but still, what she's doing and what she's trying to achieve is very noble, and I appreciated it because everybody doesn't realize at the end of the day, all of us are going through struggles. No matter if you're a first responder, veteran, we all have these challenges. And what it comes down to is looking in the mirror and reminding ourselves that I have value just breathing air. Everything I do outside of breathing air is skills and other things that I have learned or decided, and even the way I act is something I decide to do each day. But at the end, you got to be able to look yourself in the mirror every day and say, I love you, man, and I'm proud of what you've done. Hang your keys up and be proud of the person you are, no matter what. And just remember that God is in your corner, whether you can feel it or not. But I swear he's there, and he's only putting you through stuff you can endure. You just have to believe in the path and the journey of getting to where our ultimate journey is, to go back home and
Mhm.
be and go to heaven. And we're okay. We're here to make mistakes. I mean, Jesus came and died so we could make those mistakes and do those things. But it's the hardest thing for most of us, is to look in the mirror and love ourselves and
It
remember
is.
that.
Well, and I think it's cool, RJ, that you have such a strong faith, and it's really cool to hear how God has led you your entire life and that you've always leaned on him. And I admire that because I was raised in the church and had a solid foundation. And when I got in my 20s, I kind of went the left hand path for a long time. And I still believed in him, but I didn't put him in anything for the most part. I was relying on myself. So pride was my downfall. So I really admire that, man, that you have always had that strong faith. That's really cool to hear you share that. How far, how close are you to Brady? Are you guys within driving distance with each other?
Oh yeah, I'm probably 10-15 minutes away
Okay. All
south
right.
of him. So
Nice. Are you going to that event they're doing this month?
no,
Okay.
I'm not gonna go because it's on the Air Force Base, and
Okay.
I can still and carry, and I'm not willing to leave my gun at home to go somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. No, I get it, man. I get it. I was just curious. Um, how do you feel about closing out with a prayer?
Yeah, let's do it.
You mind leading it?
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Lord, I want to thank you for the time and the blessings that you've given me. And thank you for introducing me to Steve and the connection. Brady helped us to get connected. Thank you for the moment to share my story with others. I pray that others will see this in their own reflections. And I pray that everybody remembers that through you is the way that we can all go back home. But at the same time, as we're going through our trials and tribulations on this earth, that we do have value, and we need to remember that in ourselves. I thank you again, Lord. In the Lord's name, amen.
Amen. Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. New episodes drop every Wednesday and Thursday. Also, be sure to pick up a copy of RJ's book. RJ, you're the first guest I've had that's an author that actually sent me their book. Thank you for doing that. Normally, I've got to go online and buy it. So I appreciate the gift, and I enjoyed reading it. And we'll put in the notes the link for Amazon so our listeners can check out your book. And I really appreciate your time tonight, man. It's been an honor speaking with you. And thank you for your service.
You too, man, and reach out anytime. I'll be here, man. You got a forever friend.
Appreciate that, man. It goes both ways. And I'm going to make it out to Utah one of these days. Brady's been on me about it, and I've never been there. So I'm going to have to make a trip out there. We can hang out, and you guys can show me around Utah because I've never been there. So,
Yeah, well, and me and my wife been talking out and coming and visiting you because I've been around that area, but I've never been into Nashville or that
mm,
area. So, and we would love to do it, and then I'd
yeah.
come work out at your gym too.
Yeah. Sounds like a plan, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Yep,
All right,
appreciate you,
man.
brother.
All right. God bless, man.
You too.